name is Hunter Ellis, and today I'll be discussing Case 10-2, Penn State University, Sandusky Matter, Sully's School Reputation. In my paper, I covered an analysis based on race, so in my recording, I'm basically going to talk about background of the case, give you guys some information, and then I'm going to go through some of the questions for discussion at the end of the case. I'm going to go ahead and list the questions for discussion, and then you guys can listen for the answers throughout the description that I'm about to give you of the situation. The first one is, how could the situation have been diffused earlier or avoided? The second, what role did politics play in many critical decisions made along the way? The third, could Joe Paterno have stopped what was happening in 1998? How? The fourth, why did PSU kick the problem down the road for so long? The fifth, what might the second mile have done to mitigate this mess? The sixth, after reading the grand jury presentation, what do you think of Penn State's response? Seventh, did anyone do the right thing for any reason? Immediately, when I opened the book and saw my case study, I knew it was a sensitive subject. There are many of you who probably remember the situation that surfaced in 2011. I was probably in middle school in 2011, maybe a freshman in high school. I can't really remember. But I remember hearing a lot about Penn State in the news and just people talking about it everywhere, talking about their football team and talking about some really bad things that were happening, and people just couldn't believe it. And it turned out to all be true. And what it is the situation that happened was their assistant football coach, who's a Hall of Fame football coach, had allegations surfacing of sexual assault on children. It's a really serious matter, and it wasn't handled very seriously by the university. The university didn't follow the rules ethically or even legally with the allegations and accusations that surfaced, because even though they surfaced in 2011 and they finally took actions, the allegations and accusations have been traced all the way back to 1998. And Jerry Sandusky, who is the coach that was accused of these things, still remained on campus, had a key to campus, had access to children and to bring them to campus, and even going through his case over a 3-year trial, he was still allowed to come to the university. He wasn't restricted from his privileges or anything like that. So this case is about not following ethics and abuse of power, and a university kind of turning a blind eye or not paying attention to what was going on because they had a prestigious football program at stake. The grand jury report cited 52 counts related to alleged sexual abuse of 10 boys over 15 years. Jerry Sandusky, Hall of Fame assistant coach at PSU for years, was let off to jail. A few months later, Sandusky would be convicted of 45 counts of child sex abuse. Although there are many problems with this situation and it's tragic and severe for everybody involved, the primary problems with the situation is that it wasn't one individual who enacted these crimes. There were many other individuals involved with the university that were made aware of the allegations and accusations all the way from 1998 until 2002, and nobody did anything about it. So not only is Jerry Sandusky at fault, but the whole university, a lot of staff that was exposed to it, as high as the president himself, did nothing about it from a university standpoint, and they chose to ignore it. The leaders of the university didn't choose to stop the abuse, and they didn't punish the accused coach until he was criminally charged, and he was criminally charged because of reports that were filed outside of the university. So he was charged not because they did anything to stop the abuse, but because somebody else did, when they should have years before. Chapter 10 in ethics is about doing the right thing for the right reason. And this university, first of all, didn't do the right thing. And so then there was not even any reason behind it, because they didn't do the right thing at all. They did the opposite of the right thing. And in doing that, they reflected bad on the entire university. They tarnished the whole reputation. The first allegations and accusations that formed, according to the book, were in 1998. When PSU police, along with State College, Pennsylvania law enforcement, were notified of possible misconduct by Sandusky related to a minor boy in the PSU football team showers. A long report was filed, but no prosecution followed. The case was closed at the request of the PSU campus police commander. Sandusky admitted showering naked and hugging with the victim, but was just told to quit showering with the boys, and he said he would not do it again. This was the first opportunity the university had to shut down these crimes and prevent the future ones from happening. There should have been a report, and there should have been people made aware of what was going on so that they could protect their children and other members of the university. But instead, they chose to let it slide, and so it continued in the future. Coincidentally, in May of 1999, Sandusky retired from coaching, and he began to devote the rest of his time to a charity that he had founded in 1977. The charity was called The Second Mile. The Second Mile was a program to reach out to children who need additional support and would benefit from positive human contact. After the surfacing of reports in 2011 of the crimes, the agency closed its doors in 2012. Although the allegations against Sandusky and the alleged incidents occurred outside of the Second Mile programs and events, the alleged sexual abuse did involve Second Mile program children. There's no research that cites when the abuse of the children in the Second Mile program took place, but the situation of abuse was at its peak in 2002 when a graduate assistant football coach walked in on Sandusky allegedly engaging in intercourse with a preteen boy in a shower. The assistant left and told Paterno. He personally told the head football coach, Paterno, what he had seen. Paterno later told his superior, who is the athletic director, Tim Curley. Neither of them called police. A week and a half later, Curley called the assistant coach, who repeated his story for the athletics director and for Gary Schultz, the PSU vice president, who also oversaw the PSU campus police. Weeks later, Curley was informed that Sandusky's keys had been confiscated and that the incident had been reported to the Second Mile, which was the earlier mentioned charity. This was another opportunity to stop the abuse, and instead, they mildly punished the coach by taking his keys and didn't report it to law or have any reports legally filed so that he would be registered as a sex offender or have to go through a trial to determine if he was or wasn't sexually abusing children. And although some people say that Paterno did the right thing by telling his superior, the athletic director, other people argue that Paterno really had no superiors. He was the Hall of Fame football coach for a legendary program at Penn State, and everybody did what Paterno said. He could talk to his higher-ups, but in reality, he was the top of the top, and people listened to him. So if anybody would have had control to do something, it would have been Paterno. By telling his higher-up, he knew there was going to be no action taken. If action was going to be taken, he would have been the one to do it. He would have been the one that wouldn't have gotten punished because he was essentially the person who everybody was scared of. Paterno and Sandusky were in charge, and people were scared to report what they were seeing because they knew they could risk losing their jobs and their reputation and careers. And although his keys were taken, he was still allowed to continue full access to all of the facilities on campus because of his status granted to him during his retirement in 1999. In 1998, another incident that happened was when Sandusky brought an 11-year-old boy home from a workout, and his mother noticed that his hair was wet and he didn't typically shower during his workouts or after until he came home. The mom persuaded PSU police to listen to the conversation she was having with Sandusky about her son. She confronted him, and his response was, "I was wrong. I wish I were dead." A detailed investigation took place with the county attorney, but there were no criminal charges filed, and the PSU campus police closed the case at the direction of their director. If that wasn't enough of an opportunity, in 1998, a psychologist reported that Sandusky's actions fit the profile of a pedophile, but the university chose to overlook that profile. And just a flash forward for that county district attorney that dismissed the case, he disappeared without a trace in 2005, 8 months prior to his planned retirement. He was a district attorney for 20 years, and he didn't return from a road trip. His car was found beside a river, and his laptop was recovered from the river. He was declared officially dead 6 years later, and they have no clue what happened to him. The next incident that surfaced was in 2000. A PSU janitor observed Sandusky allegedly performing oral sex on a preteen boy in assistant coach's shower. The janitor told his fellow workers and his boss. Another worker had seen Sandusky leaving and had additional information on him and the victim as well. They told their janitorial supervisor, but nobody filed a report. The janitor was new and apparently in fear of his job, so he didn't report it. His supervisor didn't report it, and neither did the other janitor. These are 3 more people that were exposed to what was happening and did nothing about it. It took 3 years for the grand jury to complete its investigation, and during that 3 years, Sandusky was allowed to remain in society. An alleged sexual predator was allowed to remain at large for nearly 3 years. Typically, I don't think that's the case, but when you're a powerhouse at a university and a football legend or any sports legend, you seem to get special privileges during criminal trials. It can be asked of that office, was that the right thing to do for the right reason? What was the reason that they would leave him at large for 3 years? A hint can be that the man who ran that office was running for governor at the same exact time that all of this was being investigated. It's speculated that he didn't want to go and alienate Sandusky from society because he was afraid of losing potential donor ties with Penn State. What about Joe Paterno? Did he do the right thing for the right reason? The answer to that is sadly no. It's reported that he was exposed to several counts of the sexual assault, notified of it by other employees, and chose to do nothing. He reported it to his supervisor, who also chose to do nothing. All of these accusations made it to the PSU police, but for some reason they didn't file reports, and they closed all the cases with no further legal action. Did they do the right thing for the right reason? I don't believe so. I think they did the wrong thing, and the reason was because they didn't want to tarnish the reputation of the football program by criminally charging one of the biggest members and leaders of the program. So here's a recap of people who were exposed to the accusations, and crimes, who either witnessed it themselves or were made aware of what other people witnessed over the 13-year span. There's Hall of Fame football coach Joe Paterno, the PSU Police Department, Tim Curley, athletic director, a graduate assistant football coach, the county district attorney, 2 janitors, a janitorial supervisor, Vice President Gary Schultz, and Penn State University President Graham Spanier. That's at least 10 members of the university and surrounding community that knew of sexual abuse that was allegedly going on, or that Sandusky was being accused of these things. And that's me counting the PSU Police Department as one person instead of a department of probably 20 people at the minimum. Along with that, when I think about the people who cited as fact knew what was happening, like in reports, said that they knew, or they are 100% facts and they are charged as knowing what was happening, I have to think that there were probably 15 other people that knew. Because I know at our school, which is smaller than Penn State, when something is happening, if the athletic director knows it, that means probably 5 to 10 other people in the athletic department knows it. If one janitor knows it, that probably means all of the janitors in that department know it, or that other workers who are near that department or associate with it know it, or even students or people within the program are exposed to, have heard rumors, or know about it. Year after year, Penn State missed opportunity after opportunity to stop Sandusky's scandal and the crimes that he was perpetrating. And at the point that it surfaced, it wasn't just Sandusky who was at fault. It was the ethics of the entire university that shocked the world. This speaks volumes of why government programs and universities need to have really good PR. Possibly if there was really good internal PR and external PR teams in place, the university would have had much higher standards of ethics and how to handle situations rather than ignore them. I think any staff of an organization, whether it be a restaurant chain, a university, or a locally owned shop, should have a standard and code of ethics that each worker knows and is required to follow. PR does a great job of abiding by a code of ethics, but that doesn't mean that everybody else in the world does, and that's why PR teams need to be in place so they can help people better understand the importance of these codes of ethics. I think universities like this, or just all universities, this is a good example, should have a PR team that deals with the department heads of each department. If you have the athletic department, then the athletic director has to attend these meetings with PR teams so that they can have better internal PR. Maybe if they would have had that, the department heads of each department would have known better ethics and the proper channels to take to report these crimes so that a change would have been made. Instead of just taking it to the top of each department and then letting the accusation fall off or not go anywhere else, they would have known who to talk to and how to fix the problem and get it legally taken care of. They would have had a better moral and ethic compass instilled in them so that they could do the right thing for the right reason. This university showed so many opportunities of doing the wrong thing, and by doing that, in the end, they had to pay about $10 million for communications, PR, and crisis communications, but they should have made that investment a lot earlier in their career. If they would have dealt with the first incident in 1998 correctly and legally, they could have hired a PR team then for probably a lot less of an expense, and it would have been a little bit of a blow to the university. They would have had to spend some money, and they would have had probably been in the media spotlight. But 13 years later, when you have over 4 alleged allegations that 10 different people saw or were notified about, and nobody in the university chose to do anything about it, your whole reputation is changed. It's diminished. It's tarnished. The name of Penn State was in the mouths of people for the wrong reasons. It was bad. It was negative, and it's something they're still recovering from today. Just for an update on how this case has ended, I was trying to look into the PR on how it affected them before and after the Sandusky scandal, and it's still continuing. The scandal wasn't over. Just in August of this year, August of 2016, Jerry Sandusky was trying to get his conviction overturned, and he's denying all counts of sexual abuse. All 45 counts that he was found guilty of and all 52 that were cited and reported by a grand jury, he is now denying. He says he had poor guidance from his attorney and did none of these things. Now that I'm looking at the questions for discussion, I realize I've answered all of them in talking about this. If you find something you don't feel like I covered thoroughly or answered, please just send me an email and I'll be happy to explain more to you what I think about it. The overall lesson here is that nobody did the right thing for the right reason. And I think this is a case where people within the organization got so much power that they didn't have to do the right thing. This is why we need PR teams in place to show people what's ethical, because when you get so much power, I think it's true that you tend to lose your ethical compass. For example, we have presidential candidates right now that say crazy things. They have so much power and so much money that they don't have to play by the rules like everybody else. But you need teams in place to make sure that they do when they're part of a big organization like a government or a university. Everything they say or do when you're that powerful can cost the entire university because you're being looked at. You're on a big platform, and it's going to cost the entire university even more when other people don't stop them in their tracks as well. After the case, a new president was hired, a new board of trustees and all that. And of course, they spent the $10 million on crisis communication. They vowed to be more transparent and communicate. So in terms of that, they did try to change it. They're striving to do better, but none of that would have happened had no legal action been taken. If somebody from outside of the university didn't report these incidents and finally take legal action, the president and Sandusky would be sitting in the university still doing the wrong thing, and nobody would stop them. Everybody at the university was in fear of their job. In fear of their job, they didn't do the right thing, and that's for the wrong reason. You need to set a standard and be a leader so everybody under you knows to do the right thing for the right reason. They didn't set a good standard. They weren't good role models, and they weren't being good people, and they were doing it for the power and the prestige of their football program. And in doing that, it backfired, and they ruined all of it.